When you're troubleshooting an error code 101, sometimes the temperature sensors are at fault. In order to troubleshoot these, you're first going to want to remove them from the pipes. They simply clip on, take the sensor, inspect it carefully, look for water damage or any signs that these pins might be shorting out. Inspect the harness. Again, if it's wet or shorted out in any way, this could cause a 101 error code. Install the sensor on the pipe. That is your supply sensor. We'll open up the cabinet. And in the upper right-hand corner is the return sensor. So I'm going to remove that from the pipe and bring it out here where I can see it. Again, inspect the sensor carefully, make sure there's no defects in it or damage. Now, a really good test at this point is to verify that both sensors read the same. And the way you do this is you simply clip both sensors onto the same section of pipe in the boiler. So we're going to put both of those side by side. Give them a second to normalize. Then we're going to go into our menu by pressing and holding. After 5 seconds, we should see info. And what we see is that our outlet sensor, the red wires, is at 71. If we hit plus to see the inlet sensor, it's also at 71. So these sensors appear to be working correctly. If you had a mismatch between the sensors, that mismatch might be because you have a bad sensor or possibly a wire harness. In order to test that, leave the sensors in the same positions, take the two wires and switch the wires back and forth and see if the problem follows the sensor or follows the wire. If the problem follows the wire, you may have a damaged wire harness or possibly a damaged circuit board. Once you've established that potentially your problem exists, either in the sensor or in the wire harness, the next thing you're going to want to do is test these to ensure they're actually bad. To do that, grab your multimeter and you're going to want to set it to the kilo ohm range. Typically in the range of 20K is good enough for most temperatures. However, if it's very cold in the room you're in, you may need to set it into the mega ohm range. This one is an auto ranging meter, so I'm going to allow it to pick the range it wants. And I'll set that up there so you can see it. And what we're going to do first, I'm going to disconnect the sensor, take my two meter probes, and touch one leg each of the sensor. When I do that, I get a reading of 11.46 kilo ohms, which is about right. We're a little bit colder than 77 degrees Fahrenheit in this room, and we should get a reading a little bit higher than 10,000 ohms. I'm going to plug that sensor back in, and that was the supply sensor, the red wires. The next thing I'm going to do is move down to the circuit board. Now that I've moved to the circuit board, I'm going to remove connector 26 on the bottom left-hand side of the control board. These can be a little stiff. Just press on it, it will come off. Identify the two red wires, and now we're going to take a reading at this plug with our sensor plugged in. If we get the exact same reading, that means both the wires and the sensor are probably okay. So I get a reading that's basically the same. Now let's do the same thing on the two blue wires, which is our return sensor. Gently press the meter lead in and touch the second connection, and we get approximately the same reading. If these differ by more than 1,000 ohms or more, it indicates that potentially one of these sensors is bad. Now, we saw 11.36 kilo ohms on the return sensor, which is the two blue wires. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go to the sensor itself, and we're going to double check the reading that we get directly on the sensor. And it's essentially identical to what we saw at the circuit board, which tells us that both the sensors and the wire harnesses are in good condition. Always double check each reading. It's very rare for either the wire harness or the sensor to go bad, especially if there's no water damage. And it's even less common for the circuit board to go bad. So before you condemn a circuit board, make sure you double and triple check each of these wires. We want to make sure that there is no actual problem with the wires or sensors before we start replacing parts.